Who can relate to the earliest conceivable starting point? And is it not more important to ask, what is the end result of an action?
To your first question, we have never considered it. Never considered the earliest conceivable starting point, let alone tried it. We select a starting point, a practical one, arbitrarily, as we see fit. For instance, in the justice system, the evidence on the crime scene for a criminal investigation is the starting point. It is also true that a transition from the known, in this case one starting point as I see fit, to the unknown, in this case one or more practical starting points plus an agreed upon earliest conceivable starting point, is a source of stress. But let's not forget that what you think is the correct worldview has required a long time to get established. And as it happens, its many parts were once never tested and actually considered by the majority as inconceivable. As to the second question, of course, the end result matters a lot. But the point here is that such a result depends on the starting point. So we better know more about the latter prior to focusing on the former.
God started it all. Further speculation about starting points is irrelevant. The only significant starting point is when my religion was started. How in the world are we going to reconcile your proposal with faith?
In the language of the proposed approach, a God or superior being or universal spirit are not starting points. The introduction of the earliest conceivable starting point is compatible with your faith and your beliefs. Theologians, as well as follow-on thinkers and religious leaders, delivered thoughtful arguments in favor of these beliefs. And for a long time, may I remind you, Adam, the man, was adopted as the practical starting point. How to have my proposition work with religious faith? It will take a long time. And by the way, a pope thought about it.
How do you reconcile the hypothesis of 4 non-material primal interactions with the scientific imperative of no embedded purpose?
There is no more embedded purpose in the hypothesis of non-material primal interactions than in, for instance, electromagnetism, which is one of the 4 material primal interactions. More precisely, electromagnetism is well understood as having a central role in the production of rain, which is an essential part for foodstuff to grow and benefit mankind. At any rate, this hypothesis is presented in the essay as input for a yet-to-be-studied association with the material primal interactions scientists currently agree on when they talk about atoms, cells, and related laws. Furthermore, the names assigned to each non-material primal interactions are for the sake of giving a name, not to imply a known in advance role.
come we have an infinite variety of forms, while non-material attributes seem to remain constant, and while cells divide and regenerate themselves?
An integral part of the idea here is that the variety of forms is at each level of complexity dependent on all primal interactions, material and non-material. With current assumptions, your question has either answers related to natural forces or God-given gift, or metamorphosis, or as a modern biologist, Rupert Sheldrake, presents it in his books, there is a morphic field. All these alternative explanations are interesting, but up to a point. Primal interactions lead to fields, a parallel to electromagnetic and gravitational fields. And that's how some constancy is observed while cells keep dividing, regenerating. The non-material primal interactions have no impact if decoupled from matter.
What is the main point in your thesis? Are you suggesting we go back, way, way back, every time we need, let's say, to tackle or solve one of the many societal problems?
The philosophers and wise people of the European Enlightenment thought about a citizenry of the world. They favored one common humanity and argued about a science of man. Immanuel Kant wrote a book in 1795, Toward Eternal Peace, in which he presented a project for a federation of nations. So it is my turn to ask, why do you think these well-intentioned projects had such a short life? In part, I suggest the answer to my questions is threefold. A, the proposals were Europe-centric. The rest of the world didn't count. B, the practical details were all about perceptions and sensations. And C, there was a weak common ground. As already noted, one key objective in my thesis is to find the means to bridge all worldviews by agreeing on a common ground, and in my case, the earliest conceivable starting point, a road not taken. You have here a picture of a road and signs indicating various directions, each of them selecting a convenient starting point and none of them looking or considering the common earliest starting point. To the second half of your question, you're right. There is no need to always go back, way back in time, rediscovering all the events along the spiral. And that's why I suggest one or more practical starting points to be selected on a case-by-case basis. The central point of the spiral, the now introduced earliest conceivable starting point, with both material and non-material at its core, common to all worldviews, has the distinct, critical function of embedding, if indeed properly and patiently nurtured, a valuable common ground to all worldviews.
Is war/evil part of human nature?
The short answer is no. Recent studies show that Homo erectus was not a warrior. Indeed, our animals kill for food and are ferocious in their protection of family and property. But only modern man, Homo sapiens, goes to war for ambition and to take revenge. On the other hand, for evil and war, as defined here, to emerge in the human nature means that there was some potential for it, potential for such developments. Thus, the elements for non-materiality in the foundation include that potentiality.
Where does the law of evolution by natural selection come from?
Strangely enough, this question is hard to find anywhere. My take is that it requires elements of non-materiality to be embedded together with matter right from the earliest conceivable starting point.
Oh, but that's theoretical. Could you give me a feasible change you would recommend?
In a recent interview, a high-ranking U.S. government official said, and I quote, "The starting point of the Israel-Palestine conflict is the first rocket launched from Gaza into Israel in 1973. What if you are one of the young Palestinians who had parents kicked out of their property or killed by settlers in the name of sacred text? Would the 1973 starting point give you hope for an honest peace negotiation? I doubt it. And you? Yes, the road to peace in the Middle East seems to be without end to the suffering. How about if we invest in education for all and take the stand together with all parties to the conflict that we do have a common point? Yes, many bad things happened to both sides through the past centuries. But isn't it time to move to a higher point in the respective positions? I hear you say that such an approach may bring peace, if at all, for a generation down the road. Well, the conflict started several generations ago, and it is far from resolved with the current initiatives. And I would like to take this reference to war to underscore that my thesis is not an initiative on its own, but importantly an appendix to a peace initiative, as well as to a microbiology research project or to forensic investigations and more.
Is your proposal testable? Is it academic philosophy? Is there any evidence?
My proposal is in its infancy. More precisely, my objective is to trigger some attention from people involved in multidisciplinary research projects. At any rate, the scientific method does not have current means for the measurement of what is non-material. But what is not measurable is not consequently untrue. This is a philosophical essay motivated by the love and pursuit of wisdom, so as to trigger new explorations. There is no mysticism here, no personal fantasy, let alone an attempt to unravel of the puzzle by any means. And my short to medium term aim is to start conversations with those in philosophy, religions, and science in search of a better understanding. Throughout history, new theories as well as new endeavors got off the minds as hypotheses. They were thus followed by discussions, and in some cases experiments, to enable the testing of its claims, and as a result, ensure either confirmation or rejection. We also have situations where a new theory supersedes an older one under certain circumstances, and thus both remain available.